Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Parshas Noach. Last week we spoke about the Farbrengen that Rebbe spoke in the end of 1979 about that part of what motivated Hashem to make the commitment to Noach and mankind that he'll never bring a flood was the smell of the sacrifice, that within that was the Reach Nichayach, was the aroma of the Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice Bnei Yisrael had throughout the generations up until our generation Mamish today, as we see. And in that same Farbrengen, the Rebbe continued to explain that why is the custom in Chabad that we call out that Yaakov halach darka, Yaakov goes on his way, is so important also to the end of Shabbos Noach, because the week of Noach is the first week that we enter a complete week that has no holidays. Last week, the week of Parshas Bereishis, the beginning of the week was Simchas Torah and Shmini Atzeres. But the week of Noach is a full week that we're out in the world, and the message, Yaakov halach darka, Yaakov goes on his way, that even though Yaakov is the lower name of the two names of the Jewish people, Yaakov and Yisrael, Yisrael means Li Roish, the concept of Sirara, of a Jew masters over world. And the idea of Yaakov is Akev, the heel, where we feel we're totally sucked into world. And nevertheless, Yaakov goes on his way and makes this place into a resting place for Hashem. And this has so much to do with Shabbos Noach. Shabbos Noach talks about the flood. And in Chassidus we learn about the Mayim Rabim, the great raging waters of anxiety and stress and life that sometimes a person feels as an individual you're drowning, or like in some cases, like in our situation now, also collectively the Jewish people feel like they're drowning, and with anti-Semitism and hate and killing, and waiting desperately for the Geula Shlema, for the redemption. And the Navi says that Mayim Rabim, the great waters that could typically drown a person, doesn't drown out the love a Jew has for Hashem. And that same Farbrengen, the Rebbe explained that the point of the Mayim Rabim, the great waters, is not to torture a person, but a person becomes a person of movement, a mahalech, only by going sometimes through certain challenges. And that's why after Shabbos Noach, we go to Shabbos Lech Lecha. We know this famous teaching, the Alter Rebbe, Lech Lecha, that a person has to become a mahalech. That how did Avram Avinu get all the brachas, all the blessings that God gave him and promised him, was only Lech Lecha. You had to be a person of movement. And we know that it's been brought down many times that the Navi sometimes refers to the Jewish people like oimdim, like Eliyahu Navi, Elijah the prophet says, Chai Hashem amaditi, I stood before you. And other times we see that Zechariah says, I'm a mahalech, I'm a person of movement, beina oimdim, between the angels. So how does a soul go from being something that stands still to a person, an entity of movement, is by coming down to this world and sometimes going through the challenges of the raging waters of the stresses of life, and then you become a mahalach, a person of lech lecha, a person of movement, and then you get all the blessings, you become your true self. And this also has to do with an amazing Vart the Alter Rebbe says, concept. The Alter Rebbe teaches us about the end of the Parsha, about the Tower of Babylon, that the manipulation of the people of Babylon was that they knew the power of unity, and they figured that instead of submitting themselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to Hashem, and accepting upon themselves the bittul of God as king, the self-nullification, and using that as a tool of unity, they figured that without bittul, without nullification, they could unify with a single, each one with their own agenda to further their own self, but in a way of unity. And they try to manipulate the power of unity. And Hashem saw that, and He says that you can't do that. You can't manipulate unity for spreading bad. And we see that mamish today, that Bnei Yisrael have unified in a way that no one imagined. We went from a situation possibly that we were not exactly feeling great unity to really a level of pure unification here in Eretz Yisrael and around the world. But this is a unification of bittul, of self-nullification, a unification of helping each other, unification of bringing Am Echad, whereas other people are trying to unify the powers of evil. And Hashem is going to show, like in the Tower of Babylon, that the powers of good, the unification of good is the one that prevails, not the unification of evil. And when we see the true unification, where all nations call to one God with the coming of Mashiach, Good Shabbos.